Nita, Apetchki, Estijati, Happy Indigenous Peoples Day. Today we are celebrating by telling Native American stories through media. And this is kind of part 2 where we're at. We are doing Cornhusk dolls and Cornhusk stories, corn stories, and then we'll go to Cherokee stories and close. So let's get started.
We are going on a family vacation. Everybody is so excited for this. If you don't know,
Stongo, Brittany Johojef Kados, Unlagira Loja Bolgados, Moman Conchardi. My name is Brittany Cuevas. I'm of the Turtle Clan and my tribal town's Conchardi. Today we're going to be doing Cornhusk dolls and how to make them. We use the holes from the corn. We have some softkey corn here, for example, because I also want to tell you the origin story of our Muskogee corn. Because corn was actually a woman. Stongo, next I'd like to introduce you to my student, Mahaya. Oh, let's do elbows. All right, today I want to teach you a little bit about our softkey corn and where it came from. So have you ever tried softkey corn?
Once,
yeah. Softkey? All right. So our origin story starts when the Muskogee people used to live in camps. There was an old woman that went to the first camp and asked if she could warm herself by the fire. And they said, no, we don't have room here. Maybe the next camp will have more room for you. So she went to the next camp, and again, they said they were too full and sent her to the next camp. So she went from camp to camp until she got to the alligator camp. When she got to the alligator camp, they said, sure, we have plenty of room. You could stay here. So remember, back in the day, corn was an actual woman. So this little old lady stayed at the camp. The next day, the men went to go hunt, and the women would go and dig potatoes during the day. But the kids were around the camp with the old woman, and they were getting hungry, and the woman said, let me make you dinner, some food. So she made this food, and they ate it, and it was delicious. So whenever their parents got home, they were like, try this food, it is so good. This new lady brought this food. And so they tried it, and it was really good. But they were wondering, where's she getting all this food? She didn't leave the camp to get the food, and they'd never seen it before. So the next day, they spied on her. They were watching her, and then all of a sudden, they see her lift her skirt up. And then she started scrubbing her legs really hard, and this corn started falling down. And they're like, ew, she's eating it from her legs. And so they told their parents when they got home. They were like, the food comes from her legs, and we don't want to eat like that. And they said, but it's good. So the woman agreed with them. You probably don't want to eat from me this way. And she said, so you will have to lock me up in a corn crib at night. That night, they locked her up, and throughout the night, they heard noises like thunder, really loud, and waited till the next day to open the corn crib. So when they got back to the corn crib, they opened it up, and the whole thing was full of not just softkey, but other kinds of corns as well, the flint corn and dent corn. But that was our origin of the Muskogee corn, because the corn was actually a woman at one time. No, it's cool. Have you heard that before?
No.
All right. Mahi. All right. So now I want to teach you how to make Cornhusk dolls. Since we use everything from the corn, we could use the husk too. Okay, so the water, we get the corn husk wet. All we need is the corn husk, water, sinew, and something to cut it with to make our dolls. About this size, we're going to cut these in half and get 4 pieces. I'm going to do that one. Do that. Okay, put them all on top of each other. With the pointy parts up, we scrunch it in, and this is where we begin to tie with our sinew. Tie here. And make it a double knot so it doesn't fall apart. So 1 tie, 2 tie. If you don't tie them, they'll just come loose, and that's it. Okay, so from here, we're gonna trim about, I say your fingernail length, pretty much. Right there. Okay, so next we turn it upside down and kind of peel it. And you're wrapping it around a node. I call it a node sometimes. And you wrap it around, and what we're doing, we're forming the head of the doll. Okay, then just scrunch it all together. Now what we're doing next is tying a string right here, and that'll form your head. Two knots. Now it looks like a Polyevichka. Ooh. Okay, so next we make the arms. These are little arms, and it's separate. Another piece of corn husk. This is a good size. I'm gonna trim. Her arms will probably be about that, so we'll trim here. And we roll it. Oh, she's gonna have long arms. Really long arms. We tie on both sides. Maybe we could trim it. 2 knots. And get some. The more you use, the thicker the arms will be. Okay. Oops. So now we are going to separate the Cornhusk doll. Cornhusk. There they are. There it is. And we are going to place the arms in the middle. I'm going to trim that off. And we tie right under the arms for the waist. We trim this off and this sinew. Waist. All right, so from here, you either make it a boy or a girl. So if you want legs, you would split the two and make it a boy. And we would tie 2 knots. We could go ahead and do that. We can make it a boy and a girl. So you would tie a knot for the knee and then a knot for the foot. I'm gonna do an example. Knee and foot. The knee and the foot. And next we would just put clothing on the boy. We will use another piece of husk and about 1 inch I need it longer though. About an inch, another inch, give or take. Okay, so now we're gonna make an X in the front. I hold it with my thumb, another X. So from here, I fold it over, kind of like a sash, fold it over. And then we have the shirt, and we're gonna tie it again for the waist. Okay, last we're gonna do her skirt. So we get 4 pieces like we did in the beginning. Two more. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so now we are going to lay 2 down. And then we're gonna put our doll, your pointy side, we're gonna put the doll this way. 2 in the back, your doll, and then 2 on front. We'll tie right under her waist. Tie real tight, I'm getting you wet. Ugh. All right, then just peel down the skirt. All right, so just peel it down again, kind of like a banana. And get your doll. You can add colors by dyeing your husk. You could do Rit dye to Kool-Aid. It'll stick to your corn husk and do colors. Tuck all your strings in if they bother you. Or cut them off. So from here, we just tie a loose one because it wants to frill out. A loose one to keep it still. Right now she's wet, but when she dries, she'll get hard. So we tie it loose. Next we will cut her skirt even. To where you can even get her to stand up. And then when this dries, you can slide this off and it'll stay the same way you want it. So there's our corn husk lady. So all we needed was water, the material, sinew, and something to cut it with. Stongo! Hey, how you doing? Elbows, how about elbows? Mahaya, thank you for coming today and letting me teach you about Cornhusk dolls. It wasn't just me, my elders and ancestors gave me this knowledge to pass on, and thank you for that. We'd also like to thank the Muskogee Creek Nation Cultural Center and Archives Department and the Office of Public Relations for allowing us to share with you this virtual video. Mado, thank you.
The Cornhusk Doll. We, the Haudenosaunee people, respect what we call the sustainers of life, the three sisters, corn, beans, and squash. Honeste was ahead done on a uzarda. Of the three sisters, the corn spirit was so thrilled to be one of the sustainers of life that she asked the Great Spirit if there was anything more she could do for her people. The Great Spirit told her that a doll could be formed from her husk. She made the doll from her husk and gave that doll a beautiful face. Then the doll went from village to village and played with all the children. Everywhere the doll went, everyone kept telling her how beautiful she was. So it wasn't long before she became conceited. The Great Spirit called for her, but before she went into the Great Spirit's lodge, she looked at herself in a pool of water to admire herself. The Great Spirit talked to her and he told her that she shouldn't carry on thinking that she was better than anyone else, or that a great punishment would come upon her, but he wouldn't tell her what that would be. No sooner did she leave the lodge and return to play with the children, that again she was told how beautiful she was, and she became very smug and conceited once again, thinking that she was prettier than everyone else. Again the Great Spirit called to the Cornhusk Doll to come to his lodge. When she arrived, once again she stopped by the pool in front of his lodge to admire her beauty in the reflection of the water, with the Great Spirit's words echoing in her head, "A great punishment now must come upon you." As she looked at her reflection, a great horned owl came down and scooped up her face out of the reflection in the water. The Great Spirit had taken the Cornhusk Doll's face away for being conceited and vain. And to this day, the Cornhusk Doll is still made faceless, as toys for children, as decoration, and as a reminder to our people to never put yourself above anyone else and to stay humble, otherwise we may too still suffer a great punishment. To.
We are going on a family vacation. Everybody is so excited for this.
Once upon a time, there were three sisters who lived together in a field. These sisters were quite different from one another in their size, shape, and way of dressing. One of the three was so young that she could only crawl at first, and if she wanted to stand up, she had to twine herself around her eldest sister. This sister wore velvet green with delicate tendril ribbons. The second of the three sisters wore a frock of bright yellow and enjoyed running off across the field when the sun shone and the soft wind blew in her face. The third sister was the eldest. She was always standing very straight and tall above the other sisters, trying to guard them. There was only one way in which the three sisters were alike. They loved one another very much and were never separated. They were sure they wouldn't be able to live apart. After a while, a stranger came to the sisters' field. It was a little Iroquois boy. He was as straight as an arrow and as fearless as the eagle that circled his head far above in the sky. He knew the way of talking to the birds and the small brothers of the earth, the mouse, the groundhog, the chipmunk, squirrel, and fox. The three sisters were very interested in this little Iroquois boy. They watched him fit his arrow in his bow, saw him carve a bull with his knife, and wondered where he went at night. Late that summer, the youngest sister in green velvet, who couldn't stand up without the help of her big sister, disappeared. Her sisters mourned for her until the fall, but she did not return. Once again, the little Iroquois boy came to the three sisters' field. He came to gather reeds at the edge of the nearby stream and make arrow shafts. The two sisters who were left watched him and gazed at him with wonder, as they noticed prints of his moccasins marking his trail to the field. That night, the sister who dressed in brilliant yellow and always wanted to run off across the field disappeared. She left no mark of her going, but it may have been that she set her feet in the moccasin tracks of the little Iroquois boy. Now there was only one sister left. Tall and straight, she stood in the field, not once bowing her head with sorrow, but it seemed to her that she could not bear to live in her field alone. The days grew shorter and the nights grew colder. Her green shawl faded and grew thin and old. Her hair, once long and golden, was now brown and tangled by the wind. Day and night she sighed for her sisters to return to her, but they did not hear her. Her voice, when she tried to call them, was low and sad like the wind. But one day, when it was the season of the final harvest, the little Iroquois boy heard the crying of the third sister. He felt sorry for her, so he took her to the lodge of his father and mother. Oh, what a surprise awaited her! Her two lost sisters were there at the lodge of the little Iroquois boy, safe and very glad to see her. They had been curious about the boy, and they had gone home with him to see how and where he lived. They had liked his warm log house so well they decided to stay there for the cold winter, and they were doing all they could to be useful. The little sister in green, now quite grown up, was helping to keep the dinner pot full. The sister in yellow sat on the shelf drying herself, for she planned to fill the dinner pot later. The third sister joined them, ready to grind some meal for the Iroquois family's bread. Ever since then, the three sisters spend their spring and summers in the field together and their winters in the log house, helping to feed the family of the little Iroquois boy. And the three have never been separated since.
My job is
Okay, Stongo, I hope you enjoyed the Cornhusk Doll stories. I do have a couple of questions. Get to that screen. Okay. We are here. Oh, it already has answers. I'm sorry, guys.
Everybody's a winner. Everybody's a winner.
You're a winner. So, hey, let's see. Okay. This one first. Yeah, it's already there. Okay, who was the littlest sister? Lago, the beans. Who was the middle sister with the yellow dress? It is the squash, the Hoya. Who was the oldest sister that was tall, had long blonde hair? The corn, Edgy. So why did they disappear? Because of the harvest. It was harvest time. And then what does it mean when the boy brings them back together? It is dinner time. Corn, beans, and squash.
Right.
Yeah. This painting is available at FOURLOCV website. Next, we are going to transition to the Cherokee stories.